Adventure Ho, Lumineers! Welcome back to DuckTale Dads. My name is Ryan. I am joined by Nathaniel and Mac as usual, and we will be discussing life, Lorcana, and balancing both on today's episode again of DuckTale Dads. So first off, Nathaniel, what's new in your world?
What's new in my world? I'll say dad tip that I continue to remind myself every time I get involved in a project is get the right tools for the job. So like Mac had referenced getting knee pads for floor installation when you're doing landscaping work or anything like that. Good to have the right tools for the job. I'm doing some taking away some kind of mulched area in my yard and replacing it with some grass, kind of get a little bit of extra yard back. So, throughout that process, it is good to have all the right tools to dig up stuff, level the ground back out again, get the right soil down, and get everything set up as you're going to plant grass soon. And as we know, Minnesota's starting to warm up, but still a little bit too chilly to get that grass seed down right now. But we're almost there.
Right on. Yes, having the right tools for the job is very important, key in fact. I recently put together something new in my world is I recently put together a like an at-home weight rack, basically, just like a squat rack in my garage, and having the right drill bit, the right size drill bit, and also the right size socket wrench is critically important for being able to do that in an efficient way. And I was lucky enough to have the right tools on hand, but I was sweating for a little bit, thinking, "Uh-oh, might have to make a quick run to the hardware store, which is not so quick from where I live." All right, Mac, what is new in your world?
Gentlemen, how do I sound? I've done
Incredible.
it. I've upgraded. I've finally got a new mic. And so far, in the short amount of time that I've used it within the last 24 hours during our play testing yesterday, gotten good feedback. Yes, I now sound like a proper podcaster, so I feel accomplished on that in that regard. So yes, my update is the new mic, and I'm still in the fanboy stage. So I can't wait to continue to use it and see what unique features we have on it. But hopefully now to our audience, um, you can now hear me more clearly without me shuffling around at my desk and having random things happen in the background. So that's the thing I'm most excited about is this new mic for sure.
And for all of you listening, you're not able to totally glean this, but like Mac has been like a kid in a candy store since this thing arrived. I mean, let me tell you, this guy is loving life with the new mic and he's got the webcam set up. It's fantastic. We love seeing Mac happy.
It was immediate. As soon as we got home after I bought it, we're packing up for a vacation that we're going on in a week. So it was hard to focus on packing and then just looking at these unopened boxes with this brand new microphone. So I finally caved after about 20 minutes, and I told my wife I just had to open it and at least look at it. And then once I saw it was on the table, I was able to finish my packing. And then the guys immediately were like, anyone want to play games right now? And I was like, sure. I don't know if I can play games, but I will definitely jump on and test out the new mic. Thankfully, I was able to play one game, but yes, it's fantastic. And I hear myself clearly in my headphones. It's incredible, and I'm excited. To see what this sounds like when we listen back to it for the first time when this one comes out.
Yes, it does sound incredible. It really, really does. We've had a fun week on the in the background for Duckdale Dads. We've had some opportunities to engage with a couple of listeners, or one listener in particular.
Yeah, first and foremost, we have our first shout out. Tom from Wisconsin made a comment on our most recent posting of episode 5, just saying he's enjoyed the podcast so far and has enjoyed bringing light to dads being a part of the game, and how we've been able to, or from our experience, how we balance the game as well as our family and dad responsibilities. So, Tom, congratulations. You are the very first shout out in this Duckdale Dads podcast. So, but we thought it was worth mentioning, and we truly appreciate your support and taking the time to listen to us. So, first shout out goes to Tom. Thank you.
Woo! Yay, shout outs. Nathaniel, any shout outs you wanna put on
Yeah.
here?
I do want to provide another shout out, and that is to the Lorcana Muses. If you haven't already heard them, they are on a couple different channels. So they're on Spotify and Apple, and I think a couple other podcasting options for whichever one you like. They're also on Blue Sky, X, and Instagram at the Lorcana Muses. I have been listening to them for a very long time. I love their takes on the game. And I got to meet one of them. Her name's Brittany. Super nice. They are just gems of human beings. Seriously, check them out. They will, if I remember correctly, at U.S. Continentals, or North America, sorry, Continentals, they actually had, had a booth and were like walking around and giving out stickers and just really, really nice human beings. And I got to chat a little bit with Brittany when I went to Phoenix, which is where they're based out of, just last week. So that was really an awesome experience. They are fantastic. Lorcana Muses. Learned a lot from y'all just listening to you, and hope to one day get our crew together with yours at some large event. Maybe a DLC. We'll see.
You mentioned some of their public engagement options. Are we on social media? Is DuckTale Dads on social media anywhere, Nathaniel?
We are. We are officially now on Instagram at DuckTale Dads. You will find both some content as far as just general thoughts throughout the week on certain cards or things that are happening in the wider Lorcana community. But you will also see our new video series, which is a daily pack opening where we are chasing enchanteds. I can almost guarantee now I won't be the one that opens it, but I have to imagine one of those, the first person to get one will be either Ryan or Mac's hands on that pack. But we'll be recording those each day and uploading those pack openings to Chase Enchanteds, and hopefully that's another fun way that you can engage with us and let us know what you think on that channel as well on Instagram.
Right on. Feel free, if you're listening in, to like, comment, follow on Instagram. Same with Facebook. Comment on our posts. We can try to engage as much as we can with you. And really excited, looking forward to pulling an Enchanted on a recorded video. So we'll see where we go from there. Also, please do not be alarmed if you see guest hands appearing on the on the Instagram page. We may have some guest pack openers throughout over time that are providing some content on our behalf as well. With that in mind, we do want to talk about some recent events now that we're into the podcast a little bit. It's been a busy couple of weeks since we actually last recorded, and there's been some happenings. So first and foremost, we want to talk about is the big event. The big kahuna of events happened. One of the big kahunas of the events that happened this weekend was Charlie's Collectible Show down in Georgia, I believe. Is that correct? We had a few Minnesota representatives make their way down there. Mac, Nathaniel, what did y'all pick up from the weekend of tournament play?
Yeah, I think first shout out to at least the three that I know, Minnesota representatives. I know one made it fairly far and almost made in kind of that top 8 pool. So congratulations on those who attended there from Minnesota. But really, I think the main take back that I had, and lucky for me, Red Blue still seems to be doing well.
It's not dead.
It's not dead.
It's not dead.
I'm excited, but I think Nathaniel and Ryan are probably a little bit disappointed that probably will pull me back into the Red Blue scene. After play testing a couple of the new ones with Set 7, mainly I've been trying out Ruby Steel, and I have I got back into the Jafar wheel as well, so that's been fun to play test. But with that, Red Blue, 4 out of the top 8 were Red Blue, and ultimately the winner was also Red Blue with a Maui Shark based deck. So everyone was thinking that with the higher priority in Pete, and along came Zeus with the Sapphire Steel type decks, that it's relatively easy now to either A, limit Half Shark, or B, remove Half Shark as soon as it's played. That didn't seem to be the case in the first big tournament after it's been a couple weeks of marinating with the new set. So that's my biggest takeaway, and lucky for me, I think that's bringing me back to the dark side. Nathaniel, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think just double down on that shout out to Hannah, Christian, and Vo, who went down to Charlie's collectible show for that very large event. They're such great players from our area. Have definitely learned a lot from them, and even just watching them play this game. I do want to note that I saw recently like the way that you can sometimes be patient depending on the deck that you're playing, and I'm thinking as Max talking about Maui Half Shark, um, about this comment I heard a while ago where sometimes you hold your answers knowing based on that deck combination that they're probably going to play next. So for example, maybe you don't want to burn a removal song, or if you only have one in your hand, on something like a Tala or a Hiram, knowing that if it's a red blue player, there's a decent chance on that next character they're going to drop is going to be a half shark. That's the one that you're really waiting for. Um, I bring that up because I did play someone this weekend in just kind of a casual free play event where I happened to have along came Zeus each time he laid down a half shark, and that felt really bad for him, and I felt kind of bad doing it, but I very much limited the damage that card could do because I had that answer. So anyways, back to the big CCS event. I think it's amazing to see these huge events happening that these card shops are able to run. I think there were 320 players registered for that event. I think the entry price was about $60 for early bird, and I think after a certain date it was 75. But so obviously a tremendous pool of dollars were entered into that, but they gave away a lot, of course, as well in prizing. But it also shows, in my mind, the need for, at some point, hopefully soon, we get a layering of tournaments that are in between your local set champs and a DLC. Because a DLC is a really big event with over 1,000 players, and your set champs is anywhere from 8 to 40-ish maybe players. So having something in between there, I think about this CCS event, right? You know, how does that look if Ravensburger has a hand with Charlie's to plan that, right? Like even better prizing and even more, you know, they're really able to pump it up even more, get it even to a wider audience on their Twitch channel, right? So I think it promotes the game even more if you have those opportunities. And I don't think they would have to necessarily do a whole lot to make that a Ravensburger sponsored event and have that more like regional level where it's, you know, anywhere between 100 and like 400 or 500 players. So it's not quite a DLC, but it's not, you know, just a purely local event. Ryan, what did you think?
That's a very good, interesting point you bring up of having that kind of that mid tier, that next step, that step between your very close local group and your large scale DLC event. I think that's an interesting avenue that I'm curious to see where it goes. Maybe that Ravensburger, as the game grows and sticks around a little bit longer, does eventually start foraying into that field. I don't know if it's Ravensburger sponsored, but I know in Ravensburg, Germany, they're having like a 500 player event happening next weekend, I believe, or something sometime soon here. Um, and so I think they maybe they're testing that, using a kind of to test the waters to see how it looks. Um, I think that's more of like a nostalgic anniversary type event, but nonetheless, I still think that there could be. I support that thought that there's a room, there's space for this mid-tier event to happen. My biggest takeaway from that weekend of looking at the deck list that came out and what topped and what kind of did well. Red Blue is definitely not dead. Do bring out your dead, even though they may not be dead yet. Um, nice little Monty Python reference, I believe.
Love it.
So that was my biggest takeaway. My second biggest takeaway is yes, there's a ton of blue steel out there. Yes, it's making up 30% of the pool. But I think a lot of people are still trying to figure it out. And subtly behind the scenes, maybe that was Dan's perfect intention, was he was going to stick the meta on red blue so his green steel can still do well by confusing the heck out of everybody with blue steel Oswald items build week one and just blowing the top off things, playing the long game here. You never know. You never know. He's a crafty guy from what I've seen from him at the DLCs. Nonetheless, I do think that yes, there's a giant pool of blue steel out there. Um, And for all of the people that were patient enough to continue to play other things, I think that was very wise because it seemed like there was just a lot of hype around it, and now we're seeing that kind of the meta kind of settle out a little bit more as we head into like the second, third, fourth weekends of the set, as people are starting to get more used to it, having time to practice against it and tech against it, and figure out answers for the big questions that those blue steel decks are asking.
I have a question for you guys on this. So, Nathaniel, you kind of touched base on it, on trying, hoping, whether it's a Ravensburger sponsored event or whatnot, seeing more of these, I'll say, mid tier or mid cap type of events, right? I know the five of us, we keep referring to the core five of us that play, as much as we can. And we've always talked about going to a DLC together. Now, if we start seeing an increase in these mid tier or mid cap size events, do you see yourself switching to maybe the five of us attending to something like that, or are you still set on, no, I want to go for the big DLC. Let's see what that event is about, because it seems like if we see more, right, one would assume that these mid cap ones the pricing would be, would only increase, right? So I know the big attraction to DLCs is the amount of prizing that these players can get, not only with the main stage event, but with all the side events as well.
Yeah, I think so. Great question. And I think what better way to let you taste a little bit of what it could be like to go to a massive event like a DLC than to have a mid-tier event, right? That would be maybe not quite as far away, and maybe the I'm sure there would be plenty of talent at these, and I'm sure there would be plenty of people who would travel pretty far even for slightly more like regional, slightly smaller prizing. You're not going to get the same draw as a full-blown DLC, but I'm sure there would be plenty of really, really, really good players at those events. Um, I would still love to work my way to a DLC because I just think it's such a highlight event for the game in a year. Of course, North American Continentals or Continentals in general or Worlds is like the true gem of the events, but to be able to participate in something like a DLC, I think would be like a very, very memorable experience, even if you didn't necessarily do that great. But I think as we think about scaling, because we've each had our own journey in the competitive space and working to get better and better and better, I think that's a great way to also gauge where you're at. So sure, you've won a set champs. Maybe you've won multiple set champs. Okay, how'd you do at the regional event, right? If maybe you did really well there, it's like that would even then maybe reiterate that like maybe you're ready to take on something like a DLC. Um, yeah, I think it'd be cool. Ryan, what do you think?
I think anything that ends up in our backyard, I'm going to feel obligated to attend, whether it's a regional or a DLC. DLC is a little bit wider reach. Like maybe we can figure out a way to get to something a little bit further away for that. But if there happens to be a regional event in our area, in our state, I feel like I would almost feel obligated to attend, regardless of how big the event ended up being. But if they're throwing around pricing in the thousands range or multiple cases of things, kind of like what we've seen for the first few weeks of set seven here, then I would feel very driven to try to just attend to see how things go and hang out, have a good time. If Ravensburger gets on board and ends up sponsoring some more of these regional type events, these mid cap events, then I think that it would just be all the more enticing to show up and try to win some nostalgic prizing from those events and the side events that would potentially be held alongside those main events as well. I think it'd be fun to be in that room and to feel that energy too. I think that's the other big piece, just from like a selfish competitive sense of like, man, this is really cool. This very like somewhat nerdy goal of there's like 400 people in this room and I'm one of them, and just feeling that energy and feeling the buzz going around and all the chatter from table to table as people are playing games on games on games throughout the day. I think it'd be really, really cool to experience that atmosphere, and that's one of the things that would drive me to go to one of those mid cap events or a DLC for that matter as well.
Yeah, I think it reminds me too of like it wasn't necessarily the prizing we got, it was the friends we made along the way, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's another opportunity, right, to meet some more people. But like even for me, right, like the highlight of my Lorcana journey was just participating in a set champs with my friends, doing well together. we could all conceivably get some sort of prizing from like a prize wall if we attended like a regional event. I would imagine something,
Right.
and get a picture to kind of capture that moment in time. And to me, that would be a really special thing. So I think, again, speaking of that, sort of the friends we made along the way, Ryan, you made some friends this weekend trying out multiplayer, a
Yes.
game style we haven't even talked about yet.
Yeah, I made some acquaintances. One time meeting acquaintances, multiple time meetings as friends. But yeah, it was really cool. Checked out a new game store this past weekend just to see what things are like there, and had an opportunity to play like a four-person multiplayer event, one on one. And let me tell you what, tracking what's happening in those games is very difficult to try to figure out who's doing what and what's happening on these other boards and how to interact with them. Eventually, I just stopped tracking things and said, "How do I quest to 20 as fast as possible? Let's just do
Right.
that," because it's hard to play any type of level of control over three other boards, as well as trying to then quest out on your board. So it was really interesting to see that new game type and experience that new game type and play it. It was an entertaining experience. We were playing against a puppies deck. We were playing against one of the pre-built starter decks, and we were playing against a Mulan theme deck. Every
Wow.
card was Mulan, so it was red, ruby, steel, and challenging and everything like that. So that was really, really cool to see how all of those things kind of interact with. Then I was playing a Blurple, updated for set seven Blurple deck, Amethyst Sapphire. That was tournament relatively tournament ready or set champs ready. But then figuring out how to interacted with three different boards at the same time, and I felt like for the first couple of turns I focused on one board, and then for the next couple of turns I focused on a different board, and then for the final couple of turns, I focused any of my removal on another board just to try to like figure out what's happening and navigate that. But yeah, so the 1v1v1v1 multiplayer experience, everybody plays a 20 still on their own independent boards. The player that goes first plays our for turnout, and then in this pod of four that we were playing, that person that went first actually drew a card at the end of their turn in order to kind of stay on card with everybody else, and then everybody else would draw at the beginning of their turn to have that advantage, if you will. But yeah, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It's something I'll definitely try playing again because it'll be interesting to see how decks line up in various ways with that interesting new game style.
Yeah, Ryan, you kind of hinted at it. I was going to ask: was this kind of a one-off, or you would try it again, or something that you really enjoyed? But skipping that because you already answered that, it's kind of feeds into the next question. Our core group of five, do you think we would like it battling the five of us against one another?
Oh, absolutely. I think five would be nuts. You definitely could do it. I think it would be very interesting, and I think we would have some good laughs around the table as we're doing it. Uh, I think it's definitely something that we could try out at a future gathering for our little group too. Like I said, it would be something I would try again. I don't know. It would be something that I want to like make the core gameplay of Lorcana. I still like the one-on-one aspect as kind of the core competitive gameplay aspect of it, but it's definitely fun to try out as a one-off every now and then, just to kind of get a little spice, a little flavor in the Lorcana gameplay world. Nathaniel, what were your thoughts observing just for the little time that you were watching in?
Yeah, it looked really fun. It did look like a mind numbing task
Yeah.
as well. I will say it also did spur my interest in playing some 2v2 as well. There's a couple different ways you can do that. That's another way you can play this game that we haven't even talked about. Where you both have to get to 20, you both just sum to 40. It's a really cool way to play the game, I think, in a very different way where you're like you can't like exchange cards with your teammate, but like you're trying to like make combinations that like work with them. Um, I think that's really cool, and that's actually the tournament style that the Lorcana Muses hosted the weekend before I got in. So to Phoenix when I visited. So that's I think another really fun way to engage with the game in a different way that makes it continue to feel again fresh, different than what you're usually used to playing.
Yeah, I
I
know
definitely
Nathaniel.
think. Go ahead, Mac.
Oh, I was gonna say, Nathaniel, you definitely had the shout out with the muses when you visited, but you also tried a new variation of the game, right? The one that I think we've talked about previously, but one you hadn't personally experienced. How did that go?
Yeah, so we spoke on our last pod about the experience around draft and what we would maybe think about playing that style. And Mac was on one side saying, I think it'd be really interesting and like a fun challenge to sort of use the analytical part of my brain to see what packs have come my way and what cards then are thus going to my opponents that I need to look out for. And Ryan and I were both kind of on the side of like, I don't want to give up my cards. And so I
With the 0.1% chance you have two legendaries in your back.
yeah. But I was able to make it out to North Valley Games in Phoenix, which is an amazing store, and I got to try my very first ever draft experience. So shout out to North Valley Games in the Mesa, Phoenix general suburban area. It was really fun, very challenging. What I found out or I learned in this process is just like in a sealed event, like a standard, get 6 packs, make your deck of 40. You need to have some sort of a plan, and I wasn't prepared. I was just kind of thinking about general like don't use lots of big characters, don't get lots of uninkables, and I did okay. But I think there's a very special skill set with draft. I still do prefer the standard sealed 6-pack make your set of 40, but it was a very interesting way to play Lorcana, and then that whole idea of like take a card past the rest of them, take a card past the rest. That was really interesting and mind numbing in its own way. So really cool experience, and another one I can check off my list.
Right on. I should say, I forgot to mention this. The name of the store that I went to play with, the local people, with some other local people for the multiplayer event was Great Up Games in Maple Grove, Minnesota. So if you're ever in the area, it's a nice casual experience. Definitely show up, check out some new stuff you're testing, or just play with people that you want to just hang out and have a casual experience with.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Ryan. I think your two experiences throughout the last couple weeks or so, the one in Arizona as the one in here locally at Grey Duck, you don't always have to go straight competitive constructive. I know some weekly events, some stores are more competitive than others, but I think Ryan, in listening to your experience, it seems like that one was more casual. There was a tighter knit, community there of players that tend to show up there every single week, or a good core, and they're just there to play fun decks. So I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's an opportunity for everyone there, or there's an opportunity based on what store you go to try different styles, whether or not you want to try more constructed, competitive style on your weekly events, or just going into just casually play a fun puppy deck, like you said, or strictly Mulan. I think that's the joy that this game has brought, is because there have been a lot of options, not only for us, but I think around the city as well, for other players within our region, have been able to enjoy this game with all those different variations and levels of competitiveness as well.
Great point. Great point. We in our group we do try some things out a little bit new, especially at the start of sets. Seems like so. I do want to circle back to one thing Mac mentioned long ago now on this podcast. He said he tried out Jafar Wheel again, and I just want to ask Mac a couple of questions. So, would you care to share with our lovely listeners exactly how you found your way
No,
back to Jafar Wheel,
no,
and kind of explain the
no.
setting that you decided to play that deck
I
for the first
refuse.
time in set 7 again, and what decks you were playing against, maybe, and how we
Take it
kind of
away.
came
I
to
plead
that?
the fifth. No, no, no. I felt like I took over the Nathaniel role based on our previous experience, where Nathaniel built a very competitive green steel, yeah, emerald steel deck with discard aspects, and we kind of joked about it in one of our previous pods of how like destructive it was for everyone else. I was just thinking Jafar Wheel would be fun, and then I think the first game I double wheeled and went from 2 to 20 in one turn, and I forgot who I was playing with. It might have been Nathaniel. He just looked at me like, "Now you know how it feels." Or sorry, like now I know how it feels. It was, and then I don't think I lost a game that night, so I definitely felt the Nathaniel effect. So I will tailor. At least I know where the two bounds are, or I've been on the extreme end of when we're trying to decide these casual game nights that the five of us are a part of. So at least I know where the
Yes.
maximum extreme is, where the expectation is.
And just for further context for our listeners, the other decks in attendance, the other decks that we brought, one was an Emerald Steel Pirates deck, including set seven cards. One was a Simba deck, I believe. One was a DuckTale Dads effectively deck. It was a DuckTale deck. Thank you, Nathaniel, for crafting that one. And then I forget what Connor was playing. I don't think I ever faced him, but what do you guys remember what Connor was playing that night? Just for full context of the decks that this Jafar wheel was going
Yeah, I
against.
think he tried
Oh,
some sort of minor broom deck or something like that.
yes, he'd played brooms. He played brooms. So, yeah, semi-competitive still. Definitely like a competitive aspect to that brooms deck. I think it definitely did well in some previous sets before I joined the game, but it definitely has some legs. So I think I saw a couple of good results for it last at the end of set six for set champs. So thank you, Mac, for thank you for sharing with everybody exactly the type of setting that you went into with a Jafar wheel deck for your first experience in
I
set
learned my
seven with it.
lesson for sure.
Well, thank you for showing us all again how good Jafar Wheel is. And I hadn't actually had a chance to play against it ever before, so it was nice to see kind of some of the play lines that it can have and exactly how oppressive it can be for a jank deck to face. So thank you again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And do want to also note, because Ryan manifested this, I did overcorrect, but I overcorrected in the greatest way. I brought a DuckTale Dads deck. So many of my characters were from DuckTales or Duck characters. There was a couple other things in there that just would make it not total jank, but it was very duck themed. I was very proud of myself, and I got my butt whooped.
Yeah,
You did
and
get your Huey Dewey Louie combo once.
yeah, that was impressive. You at least got that out, or at least you were very close. I know to me against me, you had one of them out, and I think I like Zeus, a poor duck, a minor will cost character. I just
Yeah,
obliterated
instantly.
with the Zeus.
Insta banish.
But yeah, it was fun to see that too, and very on theme based on what we're currently now doing with our podcast. So that was fun to see.
That's incredible. That is incredible. All right, well now let's work on wrapping this podcast up a little bit. So, question to you, both of you, it's all three of us, I suppose. How do we first learn the game while managing our busy dad lives? And I can start. I recently kind of incorporated it into a little bit of kind of a date night or date weekend with my significant other. She was kind enough to indulge me a little bit, and we played a handful of Pack Rush games over the weekend. So just kind of opening two packs at a time out of a box of Inklings that we got for cut rate price on eBay. So thank you for the group for setting us up with that one. And we ended up just kind of playing through some games, and she enjoyed it. She does enjoy card games, and she's actually very good at them. So I'm a little bit worried for where that leads for my competitive career in this this aspect of the hobby. That being said, it was fun to kind of share this hobby with her and share the enjoyment that I get out of it and kind of enjoy it together. It's now a new favorite way for me to open, bulk packs. So anytime I think I buy a box in the future, probably going to be just playing Pack Rush with it for a little while. There is one thing that kind of increased my anxiety a little bit while we were playing is that after the first two games of Pack Rush, so for the majority of the box, my significant other wanted to play them blind, just straight up face down. You have no idea what's in those packs. And the entire time I'm thinking like, oh goodness, please don't be something expensive. Please don't be something of high value. Unfortunately, this is kind of a testament to her luck in just about every aspect of her life, is that we did not play with these packs, but there was two leftover packs that I'd opened to just kind of on the side before we actually got into Pack Rush. And out of those two packs, she pulls an Enchanted. I'm just looking at her dumbfounded, thinking, "What is happening? This is incredible!"
Gosh,
So incredible
your
luck,
family and these
incredible luck.
yeah, like beginner's luck because you pulled two very expensive enchantments first, and now your wife is the first time she's getting into it. The first week she pulls one too, and the Ursula, if I'm not mistaken, from
Yes,
set three, right?
Enchanted Ursula, indeed. Yes, it was incredible. It was quite a sight. I hadn't actually seen that card in person before, so it was really cool to see as well.
That's absolutely awesome. Yeah, I'll jump into to kind of my perspective here with when I first learned the game and while managing the busy lives. So it For me, to be completely honest, it was a little bit of a struggle. I had a little bit of FOMO at first. I got right into when Inklands was about to release, I think, as I've mentioned before. So about a year now into the game. But at that time, that's when a lot of the first chapter reprints were happening, or it was more readily available at the time. So with that FOMO, I bought a lot of boxes, probably, and not probably, more than what was originally discussed from a budget perspective with my wife. So I would just say, I think going back to what we had originally discussed on your motive for getting into the game, and a big learning that I think I touched onto this in that previous podcast was know and be sure to start out with a budget before you get into it. And I learned it backwards. So with that, I kind of had to pump the brakes a little bit on sets 4 and 5 in order to manage the early expense I got into the game. So first, learning the game while managing it with daily lives is be sure to set that budget. I can't reiterate that enough. And I like I said, I learned it the hard way, but I'm almost glad I went through it, because I've been able to manage the expectations with how much budgeted I have for this game moving forward with each new set coming out in the future. So that's what I've learned with the game thus far with the busy dad lives.
Nathaniel, how did you get
Yeah.
into managing things?
I think the biggest thing for me has always been just planning ahead. So figuring out as early as I can what stuff I want to go to, what stuff I want to, spend money on, and then, where I can best fit in practice games or web games into the busy schedule. I found that that's been the best kind of effort and juice for the squeeze, right? In terms of time commitment to get the most playing of the game has usually been for me via web games, because it's just hop on, play the games, close the laptop. You could play for an hour and get several games in, and there's no extra kind of commute time or anything. So it's easier to fit that type of experience into a busy day and still get to enjoy the game, interact with it, talk to a friend for a little while, and can connect in that way. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening in. We appreciate and we look forward to engaging with you in the future. Be sure to check out our Instagram page for additional content as we post it throughout the weeks. And for now, let's get the duck out of here.